Hi, I'm Mike Quincy. I'm here at Consumer Reports Auto Test Track, and this is the road test video of the Fiat 500e. Wait a minute. That's not the 500e. This is the Fiat 500e. So Consumer Reports has been really busy over the last several years testing almost every EV on the market. Many of them were super expensive. So we're pleased to see that the 500e is actually affordable. So you may be looking at this car and saying, wait a minute, haven't I seen this before? Yes, the 500e looks just like the Fiat 500 that was offered in the US from 2012 through the 2019 model year. The original had quirky charm, but it was saddled with notable shortcomings involving ride, noise, controls, driving position, and fit and finish, not to mention its cramped rear seat and cargo space. The 500's cheerful face, some say the headlights look just like eyebrows, and tiny size make it instantly recognizable. Certainly, the 500e is on the smaller side of most EVs. It's powered by an 87 kilowatt electric motor with a 42 kilowatt per hour battery. This combination produces 177 horsepower and 162 pounds-feet of torque. All versions come with front-wheel drive. So what most EV buyers want to know is the car's driving range. The EPA pegs the 500e at 141 miles. That's pretty short by today's standards. Home charging is relatively quick. DC fast charging in public places is limited to 85 kilowatts, and we saw a gain of 65 miles in 15 minutes. AC charging is around 35 miles of range per hour, which is not bad. Energy efficiency of 4 miles per kilowatt hour is pretty good. But the bottom line here is that charging is fast because the battery is small. There aren't any options for the base model, which costs $32,500. With the $1,595 destination charge, the total came to $34,095. But because it's made in Italy, the 500 doesn't qualify for federal EV tax credits. Even though the 500e is on the inexpensive side, it still has a decent amount of standard equipment, including keyless entry, automatic climate control, and wireless Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. Also, standard equipment includes automatic emergency braking and lane keeping assistance. But perhaps the big news here is for the base model is what you don't get, and that's lumbar adjustment, heated seats, adaptive cruise control, and blind spot warning. These features are available on higher trim lines. So it's clear the exterior of the 500e has lots of character. Now let's check out the interior. So we can tip our hat to the Fiat designers that put a little pizzazz into the 500e's interior. I mean, we like certain details, like there's a little bit of fabric on the door panel right in here. The red painted dash is pretty cool. The buttons on the steering wheel are nice glossy black, and they respond well to the touch. They have a real good quality feel to them. But there's also just a ton of hard plastics all over this car. There's a few fun Fiat Easter eggs here and there, such as the cityscape profile on the charging pad, and the Made in Torino script on the door pulls, and the little Italian flags near the hood. The red trim on the seats and steering wheel will surely catch your eye, but the doors close with a disappointing tinny sound. The center console and armrests feel flimsy, and the door elbow rests have almost no padding. So many of the 500e's controls have a bit of a learning curve, and just getting into the car requires an extra step. For example, you have to pull the door latch twice to get it to open. So just to get in the car and actually start driving it, you actually have to press the start button twice to be able to put it in gear. The door latch is an electronic release button, but there's also a really large manual release latch lower on the door. Wouldn't it be better just to have a manual one? It's especially funny because there are only 2 controls in the door. There are 2 window controls, but the door lock button is located under the center screen and above the climate controls next to the hazard lights. The volume and the media controls are in back of the steering wheel. We really love this design. The climate display and temperature is at the top of the center screen, pretty far from the controls. We appreciate the hard buttons for the climate system, but they're all glossy black pieces with significant glare. Hard to see the fan control. The temperature control is also blocked by the steering wheel. With the push-button gear selector, you can't really operate it eyes off like a knob or a traditional gear selector. The 10.25-inch infotainment screen is the same one that we've tested with the Dodge Hornet and the Alfa Romeo Tonale. The system itself is fine, but it can be a little bit difficult to target some of the smaller things on the screen. A digital display in front of the driver is easy to figure out, such as showing the readout for speed and state of charge for the battery. So for a small car, the 500e actually has a decent amount of headroom. I'm 5'10" and a half, and there's plenty of space up here. Also really glad to see that there's no center console intrusion for the driver's right knee. The steering wheel is nicely positioned right now for me, but some of our drivers have found that the 500e has kind of that arms out, traditional Italian driving style, but you can make a lot of adjustments to the wheel, so most people are able to get a comfortable driving position. Also, the design of the wheel makes it real easy to see the instrument panel in front of me. There's no blockages, so that's all good news right there. So the good news is the center armrest slides forward to help you get a nice driving position, but when it's in its most forward position, you really have a difficult time accessing anything that you put in this center console area, which is pretty annoying. So there's very limited storage options up front for all the stuff that you wind up bringing with you whenever you leave the house. There's an open bin right here, which is reasonably sized, but as we mentioned before, not easy to get to. This phone charger holder here works pretty well. It's got a rubber grippy base. The problem is with the cup holders. There's only one up front, and it just flops down on the floor. And if you use a cup that's pretty wide, it can make getting the cup out of the cup holder a little difficult. Another thing that really annoyed our testers is the sun visor. It's tiny. And even if it's down position, you're barely getting much more coverage than either the roof line or the A-pillar. And when you move it to the side, it doesn't slide on his mounting rods to get any side coverage. Ugh. Like a lot of small cars, getting the front seat is pretty easy. It's getting into the back seat that's the challenge. But at least you have this little button here, tilts the seat back up, moves the seat forward a little bit, and somehow somebody my size can slide in the back, but it's not a piece of cake. So when you look at the 500e from the outside, it's hard to believe that there's actually a back seat back here. But in fact, there is. Now, there's not a lot of room back here. There's not much headroom, as you can see. There's not much knee room. There's actually a decent amount of foot space back here. And a few of our testers have said they put a couple teenagers back here, and they actually fit as long as the front seats were moved up just a little bit. So yes, there is a back seat, but seriously, if you're buying this to haul a lot of people, this is not the car for that purpose. Of course, once you're back here and you get to where you're going, you actually have to get out. And yeah, the lever moves the seat back out of the way, but there's no straps or pull handles to get you out of here. And wow, that's a tight fit. So when it comes to cargo, small car should equal small expectations. There's not a lot of room back here, enough for some groceries, and this might be actually the tiniest cargo cover I've ever seen. And unlike most EVs, the 500e does not have a front trunk, or as they affectionately call it, a frunk. Instead, you lift up this lid and you've got an electric motor instead of cargo space. This is a tough time for small cars in the US, making the 500e a difficult sell. Perhaps the biggest drawback is commuters are only going to find 140 to 150 miles on a full charge. That's simply not enough. We think there's definitely a market for small EVs, but unfortunately, the 500e does not drive all that well. It's pretty loud inside for an EV, the ride is quite rough, and the front seats aren't comfortable. Handling is also let down by the light and loose steering. We think it's pretty cool that there's an EV for sale for under $40,000. I don't think Fiat's going to sell a lot of them, but at least there's something out there for someone that wants to go electric and is not a hardcore road tripper. This car is fine for tooling around town, and it's, well, really easy to park. But that's about it. So check back to see how the 500e did in all of our 50 tests that we put it through. And for now, from the Consumer Reports test track, I'll say arrivederci. For more on EVs, check out consumerreports.org.